Right guys, so welcome back to a brand new video here today, and this is going to be a bit of a different video from me addressing a couple of issues I find with the F1 game as a whole, more specifically F1 career mode, and it's been present in the game now since I would say F1 2017, and I want to address this because I've spoken about this in the past before, I've referenced it in videos, and I've also tweeted about it before. But I've never really backed it up with examples or proof. So this is a video where I've took a bit of time out of my day, used a couple of examples, and we're going to try and explain this. Now, this video, I'm not quite sure what to call it specifically, but this has to do with AI time simulation, glitch, or bug, where basically the AI find time via chunks of time simulation, and that also goes hand in hand with AI lap time / difficulty inconsistency, especially sectors. So yeah, we're going to try and analyze all these things here today and put pretty much a video together of proof and an example for co-masters to look at and hopefully eradicate these issues for the future F1 games, because it's one of those things that it does annoy me a bit. It isn't a game since the very beginning of career mode, but it gets worse the more you improve your car in career mode. So the faster the cars get, the closer they get to being the full package, the cars then have bigger problems and the glitches become worse. They become exacerbated. So we're going to look at them here in detail and use some proof and examples. I'm going to take my time with this video. I've taken a lot of screenshots and I'm going to, this might be a long video, but I want to make sure I get into absolute maximum detail and really leave no stone unturned. So yeah, hopefully you guys appreciate it. And also please give me your feedback in the comments down below, guys. I'd greatly appreciate it. It would really, really help me out. So we're going to jump into it here. These two examples, I want to put a few things out here first of all. So both of these races are at Spain and Monaco. They're back-to-back consecutive career mode races. Both of them are on 110% AI difficulty on 2019 game. So just for context, also we have the R&D graph on screen. You can see I'm driving the Williams, and we are the second best team on the grid. So that's where you would expect the Williams car to perform. Very close to the Red Bull, who is currently in first, and Ferrari in third, Racing Point in fourth. That's kind of like your top four you need to look at. And this is taken at the Spanish Grand Prix just before the start of the race weekend for context. So like I said, 110 AI, that is the difficulty R&D graph. And yeah, overall, that's the kind of context surrounding this video, and now we can jump into the specifics and the details. So I mentioned this video is about an AI time simulation glitch. So first of all, just to position everybody and give a bit of context, again, what I mean by this is when you take part in an F1 qualifying session, there's various ways you can simulate time. The first one is by going to track on the bottom right hand corner and you click the flying lap option, which basically skips out the outlap animation, so you can basically get to your lap much quicker. During that time, the screen will fade to black and then put you on the track. In that time, a period of about a minute and a half has elapsed, and during that time, lap times may have been set. Those lap times may be glitched. Another example is the opposite. So when you finish your time lap, if you don't want to do the in-lap manually, you can return to garage via the in-game menu. Again, with that return to garage option, you can select that, fade to black, and then that will bring you back to the garage. But in that time, a minute and a half has elapsed, and once again, potentially more lap times may have been set that may be glitched. The other option is the one on screen right now. So I'm in the garage, and I'm pretty much at the start of Q1. This is the very beginning of qualifying. I've just loaded into the session, and like every other Q1 session, I only need to do one run to get through. So what do? I load my setup up, make sure everything's looking good, make sure there's no issues with the car, and once I'm happy with where I've got things and I make the final adjustments, I am then going to prepare my Q1 session. I only need to do one run for this. So what do? I go to the track, but I let the first runs take place, so I know what kind of lap time I'm aiming for, and this is where the glitch takes place. So basically, the setup is done, I've saved my setup, I'm good to go, so I'm going to now simulate part of the time in the session, so we can get to a point in the session where there's a clear track, which is around the 12 to 10 minute mark. The track will clear up, and you can see on screen, I'm simulating time down to around the 12th minute, and that's when I'll say, right, you know what, the track's cleared up, now's a good time to go out and hit the track. So we skipped from about, the 18th minute or the 17th minute to down more or less the 11th minute. And that is more or less what I do every single session. So we've then hit the racetrack, and I'm going to begin my lap here in Q1. I'm going to show you my full lap here for full context. So currently Sebastian Vettel has the fastest first sector with a 21.0. Admittedly, this wasn't my best lap. It was not bad though. The only mistake I made was this one right here, where I ran wide at turn 3, picked up some oversteer, and that cost me a chunk of time. And that's going to set me back a little bit. And you'll see now in the first sector, we're roughly about 4.5 tenths down on Sebastian Vettel, which is fine. So forget the first sector. Let's put those 4.5 tenths to one side. Let's pretend that I matched Sebastian Vettel through the first sector. Currently, let's pretend that we are equal with the Ferrari, and we've done a 21-0 ourselves, okay? All we've got to do now is pretty much have a good second sector and a good third sector, and we should be able to beat him because the Ferrari is slower than the Williams in theory. So far, Sector 2 is looking pretty good. I've made no mistakes, nice and tidy, not a single lock-up or a bit of oversteers. We now go flat out, almost through turn, a little bit of a lift as we open up the RS, and that was a very good second sector, but we crossed the second sector line, and we've lost half a second to Sebastian Vettel in that period. I don't know how it happened, because I'm never going to find half a second with what I just did there, because it was a very strong second sector as it was. But we continue. We're 9 tenths down, so we push on. One more sector to go, sector 3. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can pull this back a little bit and find a bit of time in this final sector. So we get a head down and keep pushing. So far, again, no lockups, no bits of oversteer, a very clean and straightforward final sector. Going through the final curbs here in the final chicane, quickly on the power, and now through the final sector, and we're going to wait to open DRS right about now, and up to the line, and we've lost another 4 tenths of a second, from 9 tenths of a second to 1.3. So if you take the first sector out of the equation, we've lost a heap of time, nearly a full second between sector 2 and 3, more specifically 9 tenths. So this time, going on to my second run in Q1, I simulated some more time, but there was no cars on track. The track was empty, therefore no one set any lap times. But I know there's 4 tenths in the first sector, so I got on my second run, and this time we make the right line through turn 3, and you can see on the delta we're improving by 4 tenths. So up until this point, I know this is fine. I can do this because I knew from the first run I made a mistake. So we're matching Sebastian Vettel through sector 1 again with a 21.1 in our case. Not quite as fast, but still a perfectly fine first sector. I then continue on with my lap, thinking to myself, can I find half a second in this middle sector? So I started to push, and I started to go a little bit the extra mile to try and find a bit more lap time here. And so far, the delta hasn't really changed. Unfortunately for me, I made a mistake, and I ran a bit too wide here and picked up an invalidation. So I paused the frame at the furthest point forward with one more corner to go. We're still 4 tenths up. So basically, we're nowhere near finding half a second. Matter of fact, we've pretty much lost a little bit of time to the first sector. So already, I know I'm not going to find the lap time. Eventually, I back off and I give up on the lap. So what we can take from this is I can match the AI through the first sector, but then through sectors 2 and 3, I'm going to lose that 9 tenths of a second, and I'm not going to get it back. So, as you can see on screen, looking at the final results in Q1, I got knocked out in 18th place because I messed up my final run. But if we run that lap is from the first lap in the session because my second one got invalidated. But even then, if we go back to the original example, if we take away the first sector, which is 4 tenths of a second, let's say the gap is 1 full second to the leader. I'm still only in 14th place in the second best car on the grid. That doesn't make any sense. I'm running the lowest fuel. I know that there's nothing more I can really do on the car. I can push a little bit more, but you saw what happened when I push a bit more. I pick up an invalidation. So therefore, there isn't any consistency here because in qualifying, I can't get out of Q1 in the second best car. And it happens when I simulated time from the 18th to the 12th minute, and that doesn't make any sense. There is an inconsistency here, and something isn't quite right. But that is not it for qualifying, because that was, this happens all the time. I'm used to this, but we're now going to move into the race, because it kind of turns this theory on its head. So in the race, I've put together a couple of examples here of how the AI perform correctly and how they should do, because the problem with this glitch is that AI, when you're on the track at the same time as the AI, they drive normally, they perform normally, their lap times are normal. It's when you're not on the track or simulating time is when they act weird, because in the race, you can see here, that was my first overtake. This is the second one coming up now. All of these overtakes are in the second sector where I lost half a second in qualifying, and I'm on the exact same tyres as everybody else. I'm even overtaking George Russell here in the Red Bull, which is the only car that's quicker than the Williams. So again, this further proves that because I'm on the track at the same time with the AI during the race, of course, there's nothing I can do about time simulating in this session. The pace goes back to normal. and it's a much more consistent experience. And you can see here again, I'm going to make another overtake. This time it's on the Racing Point, which, if you guys remember, is the 4th quickest car, and in this case it's on Kevin Magnussen. So again, this proves that for some reason or another, in qualifying, if you simulate time, you return to the garage or go to the track via flying lap, any of the 3 options. If the AI set any kind of lap timers during that time, you're going to come unstuck, because you're going to lose lap time in certain sectors. And I've noticed over multiple seasons now, I did 6 seasons in the F1 2018 game, I've done 5 seasons on the F1 2019. Across both games, every single season, it's the exact same sectors where the AI find their lap time, which is really, really odd. They're the same sectors, they're always really, really quick, and I'll prove it in the next example at Monaco in a moment's time. But once again, just to debunk this, one more overtake here, this time on Kvyat in the Toro Rosso. And again, these are all overtakes in the second sector of Catalonia.
Some information on Verstappen. They have an issue with their car. They're going to be slow.
As you can see, around the outside we go, down towards the hairpin, and in 6 laps of the race, from lap 1 to lap 6, I've gone from 18th to 7th place. And not just that, I've done pretty much all of my overtakes in Sector 2. But then you ask, what about Sector 3, which is where we lost another 0.4 of a second? So I took an example here from lap 13. Both myself and Hamilton on the same tyres. Admittedly, the Mercedes isn't as fast as it once was. It's a slower car than the Williams, so I should be catching him. But Hamilton has clean air. And if, in theory, the AI are 0.4 quicker than me through this final sector, Hamilton should be pulling away. But guess what? He's not. I'm keeping up quite comfortably, and as a matter of fact, I actually executed an overtake on him on this pit straight, and I lost no time whatsoever through the final sector. Because now, if you look at more examples here over the rest of the race, I kept on doing my thing, and you can see on screen, purple final sector is the consistent overarching theme here. This is the final stint of the race. On the hard tyres, everyone's got the exact same tyres on, and it's all about car performance, and lap after lap after lap, I'm doing a purple final sector, and I don't even have the fast lap of the race up until the very next lap here at lap 25 onto lap 26, when I do manage to pick up the fastest lap. But up until that point, I did purple after purple after purple final sector, and again, it doesn't add up with the qualifying performance, because I'm going faster in the final sector than I was in qualifying, and it doesn't make any sense, because again, sector 2 as well, that proves with the overtakes that I can find more time in the race. And in the race in itself, I started 18th, finished 3rd, and that is consistent, because Williams is the second best car on the grid. Therefore, I should be finishing in 2nd place or 3rd place, or at least challenging for the podium, not qualifying in 18th place. But that is it for Catalonia. We're now going to move into example number 2 at Monaco. Right, so now we're at Monaco here, and this is example number 2. So for this one, once again, we are going to simulate time in qualifying, and we're going to go all the way down to about the 10th minute. Obviously, around Monaco, you don't want to have any traffic. Clean air is critical, and you want to have a clean track to push. So you can see currently the lap times are being set by the AI, and currently Pierre Gasly is quickest with a 1 minute 7.5 in the exact same car as myself. With 9 minutes to go, or just under 10 minutes, we hit the racetrack. Clean track, nobody on it. I do a manual out lap, of course, because I don't want to have any issues with time simulation. And we're going to get underway on a lap. I'm going to show you guys this lap in full, just to see again. And unlike Spain, Monaco actually has no major inconsistency with the sectors. The AI are very consistent with qualifying over to the race. The consistent pattern here is, in Sector 1, I'm always down. I'll always lose 1 to 3 tenths on the AI through Sector 1. Even in the race, the consistency is there. Then through Sector 2, the pattern would normally be we're quite similarly matched. But then through Sector 3, I'm about 4 to 5 tenths quicker than the AI, both in qualifying and the race. And overall, that makes me quicker over 1 lap than the AI, because I find more time in the final sector than what the AI do in the first one. You can see here, again, it's just to prove it, because it's a general lap as we go through the Nouvelle Chicane. Sector 2 is coming to a close. It's been a very good lap so far, no major mistakes. And you'll see now through the second sector split, we are currently 3 tenths down still on Gasly, which is exactly the same as the first sector. So therefore, no time has been lost, and we have matched the AI after the second sector. So far, it's pretty consistent. We now go in towards the final sector, like I mentioned before. From qualifying to race, it's the exact same thing. I find 4 to 5 tenths on the AI. Regardless of whatever I do, I can just go very quick through here, and the AI aren't that good, especially for the swimming pool chicane. That's where I find the AI are not very good. The second part of the swimming pool chicane, more specifically. We now go up to the line to end that lap here, and we set a 1 minute 7.6. And you can see there, we've found 3 tenths of a second in this case, and we've matched Gasly's lap time, and we've gone second in the timing chart. So overall, it kind of makes sense. It adds up, and Q1 is consistent. I then returned to the garage. I then retired from the session for a change with 6 minutes to go. And overall, this wasn't the worst example, but there were a couple of nominations. So as you can see, Verstappen got in between the Williams cars, which is to be expected. The Williams, and the Red Bull are very close. And then you've got the Ferraris a bit further back, and then the Racing Point of Perez in 6th place. Overall, it kind of adds up. Magnussen's a bit out of place in P11, along with George Russell. And then you've got Ricciardo in the Alpha, all the way up in 8th place. In an Alfa Romeo, it doesn't quite make any sense. Hamilton up in 7th place as well. But generally, this is one of the better examples of sometimes time simulation doesn't always happen. But there are still a couple of things there which make you raise an eyebrow. But generally, this is what is considered to be a good example. But we then move into Q2, and then the examples now start to frustrate me, because this is more of a good example of the time simulation glitch. This is where I can be more specific and really highlight the issues. So again, in Q2, I simulate part of the session. I pause the frame here because I've currently skipped 1.5 minutes of Q2, and you can see Gasly hasn't set a lap yet. Therefore, the time glitch hasn't taken place because Gasly hasn't even done a sector. He's currently on his out lap. So we continue on, and I'll skip to Charles Leclerc. I stayed on board with Charles Leclerc for about 45 seconds because I must have been doing something at the time. And eventually, with 11.5 minutes to go, I hit the track in the Q2 session. At this point, I've not simulated time at any point in Q2. So, in theory, the AI would have set some respectable lap times, and I'm now going to hit the track here. So, let's see what kind of laps the AI did. Bear in mind the reference, again, Gasly in Q1 did a 1 minute 7.5, okay? That's very important to note, because in Q2, I haven't simulated any time yet. This has been, 1-to-1 in terms of second per second. But then in Q2, Gasly goes quickest. And you'll see here, as he crosses the line, a 1 minute 7.890. Nearly 4/10 slower than the Q1 lap. So, interesting. He's gone slower in Q2, and in theory, you should go faster because, you naturally pick up the pace in Q2 as you go towards Q3. Nevertheless, I continue on with my lap, and I do business as usual, and because the lap isn't as quick as Q1 from the AI, I feel a lot more confident that I can beat it. And admittedly, my lap wasn't great. There was a couple of mistakes. It was a little bit scruffy, but we are going to go quickest here, and we are going to set the benchmark. This time, though, with 1 minute 7.8, I myself went 1.5 tenths slower than in Q1, but surprisingly, the lap was good enough to go P1, which was really, really surprising at the time. And up until this point, we're halfway through Q2, 8 minutes to go, and there has been no time simulation at any point. So, I then drive manually back to the pit lane slowly because I want to make sure I start the race on these tyres and I don't wear them out anymore, because there's another glitch with that which I'll get into in another video. But yeah, we drive back to the pits manually. No one's hit the racetrack yet. The track's quiet. There's nobody on it. So we're still in first place, as you'd expect. But then I thought to myself, you know what? A 1 minute 7.8, I'm P1. I should go through to Q3, right? Because that should be pretty comfortable. So I decided to simulate the time in the rest of the session, and look at the lap times all of a sudden as multiple cars get quicker here. But then suddenly I pause the frame at the final second here. You can see Gasly's done a 1 minute 7.2. He's gone 3 tenths quicker than Q1 and 6 tenths quicker than his first lap in Q2, which again, I don't know why he didn't do that on his first run. Sergio Perez also in P2 there, in what is in theory the fourth quickest car on the grid. Sainz went up to P4, which was quite weird. So overall, there's a couple of things there where you kind of sit there and think to yourself, okay, a couple of red flags, that doesn't look too good, but I'm still P3. I should be comfortable. There shouldn't be much going on there. You've got a couple of other surprises. Albon in the Toro Rosso in 6th place. What's he doing so high up? But, P3, 1 second to go. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm comfortable. I've got this. But then we skip to the very next frame, the very next second, where the timer goes from 0.01 to just noughts or dashes. It's the very next second, and I've gone from 3rd place to 7th. And there's a couple of things to mention here, and I'll try and flick between the images so you guys can see it. But a couple of things don't quite add up to me here. So there's only been a frame difference between each one, and the second image, the latter one, is when the session is pretty much drawn to a close, and it makes for quite interesting reading. So I lose half a second in the first sector alone, which is quite weird because my first sector, as you saw on my lap previously, was nothing wrong with it. It was a perfectly fine first sector, and there is absolutely no way in hell am I going to find 0.5 of a second through that first sector where there's only 4 corners. So again, it doesn't make any sense. The first sector at Monaco, in my opinion, is glitched. Sector 2, I lose another 0.3 of a second, but I think I could probably, personally, from seeing my lap back, there was a mistake or two, I could have maybe gone 1 or maybe 2 tenths quicker, so I can kind of let that one slide. And then we know that I'm very fast through Sector 3 and the AI just simply not good enough. But yeah, if we compare the images now, a couple of things to note. For example, keep your eye on Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc. If you look at the laps there, very interesting, because if you look at their second lap compared to their first one, again, it seems like the first picture, when there's a second left, those are the lap times they should be setting. That's where the pace of the car is. But then you skipped in the session and they set a ridiculous lap time, which is much, much quicker. And it's important for you guys to notice these laps and look at the lap times one by one, from Gasly down to Perez. Look at the laps and absorb them. Even Sainz, Ricciardo and Bottas, everybody is below a 1 minute 8. So bear that in mind as we now skip towards the end of the Q2 results here. You can see on screen, nothing much has changed. We go through 7th place, and those are the lap times. Worth noting, all the way down to 13th place, everybody is below a 1 minute 0.8. Which is quite interesting, because we're now going to move into Q3, and Q3 was a surprising session because you look at Gasly's lap time, first of all here, 1 minute 7.2. You're thinking to yourself, right, okay, so in theory, if Gasly if Gasly did a 0.5 in Q1 and a 0.2 in Q2, surely he's going to be looking for a 106 maybe in Q3. That would be logical, right? Because that's what you'd expect. So we then move into the Q3 session, and again, to prove the glitch is real, in Q3, I was on the track at all times compared to the AI. So this is one of the sessions where I don't give the AI the chance or the time of day to set the lap time glitch, because I make sure that I'm on the track at all times. In Q3, I go for 2 runs because I've got the tyres for it. So as you can see here, everybody's hitting the track, and I'm just waiting in the garage for my turn to go out and get some clean track. And we go out with about 10.5 minutes to go for our first run. We hit the track here eventually. You can see no lap times have been set, and we're going to the racetrack along with everybody else as normal. So I then crack on with my lap here in Q3. And you can see here towards the end of the lap, Verstappen's currently going quickest, but then Gasly goes P1 with a 107.7, which is very similar to the very first lap in Q2 when there was no time glitch present, if you guys remember. So we cross the line and we set a 1 minute 7.6 and go quickest. So far, so good. And again, that lap time, worth noting, from Gasly, half a second slower than the lap he did at the end of Q2 on his second glitched run. In Q3, nobody's on the track here, so I simulate time to get towards the final runs, because no AI does the runs between the 7th to the 2nd minute. Nobody goes on track, so you can afford to skip this time and not have any issues. And then with about 2 minutes to go, we hit the racetrack and get ready for the final runs. At this point, I'm fully expecting the AI to step up, because they've not gone that quick. The fastest person is Gasly with a 1 minute 7.7, which would have barely got you into Q3 in the previous session, which again doesn't make any sense. So we're going to hit the track and we're going to try and improve our lap time and go through. So as you can see here, we're underway on our lap now, and I did an absolutely incredible lap here. This was a really strong lap from me, and I was very, very happy. Surprisingly though, or should I say unsurprisingly, nobody improved with the AI cars. No one went quicker, which is quite telling, because I didn't let them set a glitch lap time. I was on the track with them at the same time. I was the last car to go out on the track. I was the last car to cross the line, which meant I watched the AI do all of their lap times. Gasly managed to improve to a 1 minute 7.6 at best, which is shocking, because in Q2 he did a 0.2. And around Monaco, 0.4 of a second is massive. Me personally, I stepped up and I had the logical progression. So I did a 1 minute 6.9, which makes sense. The AI did not step up. And remember, I said to you in the last session, from first all the way down to 13th place, everyone was below the 1 minute 8. In Q3, 4th place, Sebastian Vettel, 1 minute 8.0. And then everybody else is outside the 1 minute 8. So something isn't right, because I didn't have any time simulation glitches in Q3, like I said before. I made sure I was on track with the AI at all times, so therefore they couldn't set those glitch lap times. And this further proves there is something wrong, and this happens at every single circuit, especially tracks, open world tracks, not Monaco, because Monaco's a street circuit, but there are tracks, open world ones, where the AI, it's a 1 minute 30, 1 minute 40 lap, and the AI have such a bigger opportunity to make up that time. Like, for example, use Spain in the previous race as an example. The AI find 9 tenths through Sector 2 and Sector 3 compared to me when I'm not on the racetrack and it's broken. It doesn't make any sense. You know, around Monaco, you can get away with it because around Monaco, the AI aren't very fast anyway. Even with their glitch lap times, they're not that fast. You know, AI have always been traditionally slow at the Monaco Grand Prix, so you can kind of exploit that a bit. But yeah, overall, I think this video makes sense. Hopefully you guys understand it. You've stuck with it all the way through, and hopefully the examples are there to be seen. But we've had 2 tracks here, and I could have used a third one for Canada because I recorded that yesterday, but this video will be just getting too long at this point. I want to use these 2 specific examples around completely different tracks to prove the issue is there, because there's a massive amount of inconsistency here, and it just doesn't make any sense. If I flash up a few images on screen, you know, guys did a 0.2 in Q2, and there was other laps as well. Verstappen, for example, did a 1 minute 7.4, whereas in Q3 he did a 0.7, he did a 07.8, which is 4 tenths off as well. There's consistency there. Sebastian Vettel did a 1 minute 8.0 in Q3. In Q2 he did a 1 minute 7.7, so he's 3 tenths off. There's consistency there. You know, Lewis Hamilton, who's currently in P10 in Q3 with a 1 minute 8.3, in Q2 he done a 1 minute 7.7, 6 tenths off. So the AI are losing massive amounts of time, or should I say gaining massive amounts of time in this case, when you simulate time in the qualifying sessions. It's a broken flaw in the game, and it's been there since F1 2017. And these glitches and the time that AI gain via the glitch only gets worse the faster the cars get improved. The more upgrades that happen, the faster the cars get. And it gets to a point where, for example, in F1 2018, I had to revert to one-shot qualifying or the short qualifying session of 18 minutes because you need to be on the track at all times. And unfortunately, unless you have a full hour and 10 minutes of your day available to do the full proper one or the 3-part qualifying and do them in full and watch them in full, you know, manually go out to the track, manually drive back, you know, and watch the whole 18 minutes, 50 minutes and 12 minutes of each respective session go by, you're not gonna avoid the glitch. That's the only way you're gonna avoid it, by manually watching every single session. And unfortunately, some people, like myself included, don't have that time to just sit there for an hour and 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and just wait for things to happen. We have to get moving. So hopefully this video made sense, and you know, we've got the examples from the race pace at Spain to kind of back up the problem that we have, and also the example of the Q3 session at Monaco, where, you know, that also proves the AI has a fundamental flaw where they go too fast when you simulate time. Essentially, don't sim time in qualifying because it's going to catch you out. It's broken, and the AI will set unrealistic lap times, and it needs to be resolved. But guys, hopefully you enjoy the video, and please be sure to share this video, send it to Codemasters, share it with your friends. You know, give me your feedback in the comments down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. But if you guys enjoy the video, drop a like, subscribe if you are new. I'll make more of these in the future because I've got a few of these lined up, because there's a few things that just get to me a bit too much now, and they're fundamentally critically flawed and have to be eradicated. So guys, hopefully you enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one very soon. But until then, it's goodbye from me.